In today's episode, we're going to explore one of the most fascinating and, at times, quirky aspects of ancient Roman life: how love and dating worked. Ancient Rome, a civilization known for its grand architectural achievements, military prowess, and complex political structures, had a very unique take on romance, relationships, and courtship. This episode, while focusing on the curious customs and traditions surrounding love and relationships in Rome, is sure to provide you with fascinating insights into an often overlooked part of Roman society. So grab a blanket, cozy up, and get ready to discover what love and dating were like in one of history's most iconic civilizations. The ancient Romans, much like modern societies, were deeply invested in the ideas of love, relationships, and marriage. However, the way they approached these topics was quite different from our modern conventions. Roman society was structured around strict roles and expectations, especially in terms of gender, social class, and familial duty. Yet this didn't prevent the flourishing of romantic relationships, which were essential for the continuation of families and the expansion of Roman influence. In Rome, romance and love were often seen through the lens of practicality. Relationships were not just about personal affection. They were deeply interwoven with societal expectations, political alliances, and the continuation of familial legacies. Whether it was through arranged marriages, political unions, or fleeting love affairs, the approach to love and dating in ancient Rome was multifaceted and complex. In ancient Rome, marriage was more of a social contract than a romantic union. Roman marriage, or matrimonium, was primarily about securing alliances, producing heirs, and ensuring the continuation of the family name. While love could be a byproduct of marriage, it was often not the primary motivation for entering into a union. Roman marriages were typically arranged by the families of the bride and groom, with the intention of enhancing their social standing or securing property and wealth. In fact, love was often regarded as secondary to these more pragmatic concerns. Roman men and women had different roles when it came to marriage. Men, typically in their late 20s or early 30s, were expected to be the head of the household and the main provider. Women, on the other hand, were often married in their teens and were expected to manage the household and bear children. Though these marriages were rarely based on love, they were crucial for maintaining the Roman family structure and social order. Love in ancient Rome was considered an emotion that could lead to both great joy and great tragedy. Roman thinkers and poets like Ovid often wrote about the complexities of love, from its passionate heights to its painful lows. However, love in Rome was not the same as it is understood in modern terms. The Romans viewed love as something that could be both, a blessing and a curse, a force that could drive individuals to great acts of devotion or irrational decisions. One of the most famous expressions of love in ancient Roman culture was through poetry, especially that of the poet Ovid. His Ars Amatoria, the art of love, offered advice on courting, flirting, and navigating romantic relationships, albeit with a certain level of cynicism about the true nature of love. According to Ovid, love was a game to be played with skill and wit, much like a contest of intellect. Courtship in ancient Rome was a structured process that involved rituals, social etiquette, and mutual consent. However, it was also a delicate dance that involved a great deal of personal charm, flattery, and strategic behavior. Roman men and women would often meet in public spaces such as the marketplace or the baths. In these social settings, a man could approach a woman, offering her gifts, compliments, and displays of his social status. Women, on the other hand, were expected to be demure and modest, but not without a degree of playfulness. They could flirt, but they also had to maintain their reputation as virtuous and modest individuals. Flirting in ancient Rome wasn't just about physical attraction. It was a form of social negotiation where one's status, wealth, and family background were often as important as the affection between the two parties. In this way, the Roman courtship ritual was both a performance and a business transaction. While marriage was seen as a social contract, love affairs and extramarital relationships were an accepted part of Roman life, though often surrounded by social taboos and moral contradictions. Roman men, especially those of higher social status, often had mistresses, and these relationships were frequently discussed in literature, art, and public discourse. In fact, some of Rome's most famous historical figures, such as Julius Caesar and Augustus, were known for their extramarital affairs. Women, on the other hand, were not typically allowed the same freedoms. Roman women were expected to be faithful to their husbands and were often punished for any form of adultery. Roman law and custom severely restricted women's sexual autonomy, and any extramarital relationships could lead to severe social and legal consequences. Romance and politics often went hand in hand in ancient Rome. Political alliances were frequently cemented through marriage, and love affairs could serve as a way to secure power and influence. This connection between love and power was exemplified by the numerous high-profile love affairs and marriages that shaped Roman history. For example, the affair between Julius Caesar and Cleopatra was not only a romantic entanglement but also a political alliance that had significant implications for the future of Rome. Similarly, the marriage of Augustus to Livia was a union that not only solidified his personal power, but also ensured the stability of his dynasty. In this way, love and power were deeply interconnected in Roman society, with relationships often serving as a means to further political goals. Sexuality in ancient Rome was complex and nuanced. While Roman society was generally permissive when it came to sexuality, it also had very strict rules about sexual roles and expectations. Roman men were expected to take the dominant role in sexual relationships, while women were expected to be passive participants. There were also significant distinctions between acceptable sexual behavior for men and women. Men could engage in a wide range of sexual activities, including with slaves, prostitutes, and other men, without facing the same social stigma that women did. For women, sexual purity was of utmost importance, and any deviation from this could lead to public shame and disgrace. Love in ancient Rome was a common theme in art and literature. Roman poets like Virgil and Catullus wrote extensively about love, often focusing on the pain and longing that accompanied unrequited or forbidden love. In contrast to the more cynical views of poets like Ovid, these writers explored the emotional depth and complexity of love as a force that could inspire great acts of devotion. Roman art, too, reflected these themes of love, with frescoes, sculptures, and mosaics, often depicting romantic and sexual scenes. These artistic representations were not just for entertainment. They were often seen as a way to celebrate fertility, passion, and the human desire for connection. The ancient Romans were heavily influenced by Greek culture, especially when it came to the arts, philosophy, and even matters of love and courtship. Greek ideas about love, beauty, and relationships were adopted and adapted by the Romans, who often saw themselves as heirs to Greek civilization. Roman poetry, for example, was deeply influenced by the works of Greek poets like Homer and Hesiod. Greek mythology also played a major role in shaping Roman views of love, with many Roman love stories drawing inspiration from the gods and goddesses of Greek mythology. The Romans believed that love was a divine force, often driven by the gods, and they celebrated this through their art, literature, and rituals. Despite the transactional nature of marriage in Rome, family life was still central to Roman society. Roman families were structured around the paterfamilias, or the male head of the household, who held absolute power over his family members. The relationship between husband and wife was often formal, with the wife expected to manage the household and bear children, while the husband was responsible for providing for the family and making important decisions. Children were expected to respect their parents and fulfill their duties to the family, but the idea of love and affection within the family unit was still important. One of the most interesting aspects of Roman courtship was the advice offered to men and women on how to be successful lovers. The most famous example of this is Ovid's Ars Amatoria, The Art of Love, a poetic work that offered practical advice on how to attract and maintain romantic relationships. In his work, Ovid offers tips on everything from choosing the right partner to managing the ups and downs of a romantic relationship. He also delves into the nature of love itself, describing it as a game to be won through wit, charm, and strategy. The Roman approach to love, courtship, and marriage had a profound influence on later cultures, particularly in Europe. Roman legal and social structures formed the foundation for many aspects of European marriage customs, and Roman literature and art continued to inspire generations of poets, playwrights, and artists. The concept of love as both a spiritual and physical force was passed down to later societies, and the Roman view of romantic relationships continues to shape the way we think about love today. Ancient Rome may seem distant and foreign to us, but its approach to love and dating provides valuable insights into the human experience, from the transactional nature of marriage to the passionate and sometimes tragic love affairs that shaped Roman history. The Romans were no strangers to the complexities of romance. So, as we reflect on love in the ancient world, we can't help but wonder how much has really changed over the centuries. In ancient Rome, the role of women was heavily defined by law and social norms. Women's rights, especially in marriage and romantic relationships, were limited by patriarchal systems that governed family life. Although Roman women had some degree of freedom, particularly in managing their households, they were still subject to the authority of their fathers, brothers, and husbands. The Roman legal system granted women a certain level of autonomy, especially in terms of property and inheritance. However, in marriage, women were still viewed primarily as assets in the eyes of the law. They were expected to be dutiful wives and mothers, and their behavior was often regulated by strict codes of conduct that dictated everything from sexual purity to social decorum. Women in ancient Rome were not permitted the same sexual freedoms as men. Adultery committed by a woman was considered a grave crime and was punishable by law, often with severe social and personal consequences. However, men had more leeway, with extramarital relationships being widely accepted, provided they did not disrupt the family unit. This double standard created a deeply gendered approach to romance and sexuality in Roman society. Prostitution was an integral, though controversial, part of Roman society. Both men and women engaged in prostitution, though it was far more socially accepted for men than women. Roman prostitutes were typically slaves or lower-class citizens who sold their bodies for money. These individuals, though marginalized, played a significant role in the social fabric of Roman life. Brothels, known as lupanaria, were common in Roman cities, especially in the bustling urban center of Rome. These establishments were regulated by the state, and patrons could visit them discreetly. Interestingly, while Roman literature and art often depicted scenes of prostitution and sexual indulgence, highlighting the contrast between Roman sexual liberation and the moral constraints imposed on women in other areas of society. Some of the most explicit representations can be found in Pompeian frescoes and mosaics, which depict various sexual acts, showcasing the prevalence of prostitution in everyday Roman life. Slaves in ancient Rome, while not considered full citizens, played a complex role in Roman romantic and sexual life. Roman men, particularly those in higher social classes, often had sexual relations with their female slaves. These relationships, while often exploitative, were not always solely transactional. Some relationships between masters and slaves were based on affection, while others were purely based on power dynamics. Male slaves, on the other hand, were generally excluded from engaging in romantic relationships with freeborn women. However, they could form relationships with other slaves or prostitutes. These relationships were often seen through the lens of ownership, where the master would dictate who could be with whom. There were rare instances where slaves were freed, and the nature of their relationships with their former masters or mistresses could shift dramatically. Freed slaves sometimes married into higher social classes, though their status as former slaves could still prevent them from fully integrating into the elite strata of Roman society. Roman marriage rituals, or nuptiae, were ceremonial and steeped in religious and social significance. The marriage ceremony itself was a multi-step process that required the couple to go through several rituals. First, the bride was presented to the groom's family, where the marriage was formally arranged. The ceremony took place in the presence of the bride's family and the public, and it was often conducted by a priest or a designated officiant. One of the most important elements of Roman marriage was the dextrarum junctio, the joining of the right hands symbolizing the union of the couple. This was followed by vows, and the bride would then receive a dowry, which often involved land, property, or wealth. This dowry, however, was not considered a gift, but a protection for the bride, in case the marriage was dissolved or the husband passed away. Following the ceremony, the couple would celebrate their union in a feast, which was a communal event. This celebration was not only an expression of joy, but also a reflection of the couple's new status in Roman society. The significance of the marriage ceremony lay not only in the religious and cultural rites, but also in the establishment of a powerful social contract. Divorce in ancient Rome was relatively common and could be initiated by either the husband or the wife. Roman divorce was simpler than modern legal divorces, and it could be carried out without the need for a court order. The reason for divorce could be a variety of things, from infidelity to incompatibility. A Roman citizen, typically a man, could simply announce to his wife that their marriage was over, and the divorce would be finalized. Women, however, could also initiate a divorce, though it was less common. Roman law allowed women to seek divorce if their husbands were abusive, if the marriage had been based on fraud, or if they were subjected to infidelity. Nevertheless, societal norms often placed pressure on women to remain in marriages even if they were unhappy, as divorce was viewed as a social failure. Roman divorce laws were relatively progressive for their time, allowing for relatively low barriers to ending a marriage. However, these laws often favored men, and it wasn't uncommon for a man to divorce his wife to marry someone younger, more politically advantageous, or more desirable. The transition from the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire brought significant changes to Roman society, including its approach to love and marriage. Under the Republic, marriage was seen as an essential part of civic duty, with an emphasis on producing heirs and maintaining the family line. However, as the empire grew and emperors assumed more power, marriage became less about duty and more about personal power and political alliances. Emperors, such as Augustus, were often married for political reasons. Augustus, in particular, promoted traditional Roman values, including marriage and family life, through a series of moral reforms. He passed laws that encouraged marriage, penalized adultery, and promoted the importance of having children. At the same time, emperors like Caligula and Nero were known for their numerous affairs and indulgences in love and sexual exploits. The excesses of these emperors provided a stark contrast to the moralistic laws of Augustus and reflected the complexities of love, power, and politics in the Roman Empire. Throughout Roman history, there were numerous famous lovers whose relationships became part of Roman lore and literature. One of the most famous examples is that of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra. Their love affair was not just a personal romance, but also a political alliance that played a crucial role in shaping the course of Roman history. Another famous pair was the poet Catullus and his lover Lesbia, whose tumultuous relationship inspired some of the most passionate and poignant poetry in Roman literature. Catullus's poems about Lesbia were filled with longing, jealousy, and deep affection, providing a window into the emotional landscape of Roman romance. One of the most tragic stories of love in Roman history is that of Antony and Cleopatra. Their passionate love affair, filled with drama, betrayal, and political maneuvering, ended with both lovers committing suicide after their defeat by Octavian. This tragic end only served to cement their status as one of history's most famous lovers. As we've seen, love and dating in ancient Rome were far from simple. They were deeply embedded in the social, political, and legal fabric of Roman life, influenced by power, class, and duty. While love in ancient Rome might seem distant from our modern understanding, many of the emotional experiences associated with romance, passion, jealousy, longing, are universal. The Romans may not have had dating in the way we understand it today, but their approaches to love, courtship, and marriage laid the foundations for many of the norms we see in Western society today. Whether it was the transactional nature of marriage, the practice of extramarital affairs, or the exploration of love in poetry and art, the Romans had a complex and multifaceted relationship with love. As we reflect on these ancient customs, we can't help but marvel at how much and how little has changed in the ways we experience love, dating, and relationships. The lessons of Roman love remind us that, whether in ancient times or today, love remains a powerful and often unpredictable force. The Romans, much like many other civilizations, were greatly influenced by the cultures they encountered through conquest and trade. Among the most significant cultural influences on Roman romantic practices came from the Greeks, who had a rich tradition of philosophy, poetry, and mythology related to love. Roman society adopted many Greek ideals, incorporating them into their own systems of relationships, courtship, and even the institution of marriage. Greek love, with its emphasis on beauty, passion, and intellectual connection, resonated deeply with the Romans. Roman poets like Catullus and Horace often drew upon Greek themes in their works, and many of their romantic ideals were rooted in Greek philosophy, particularly the idea of eros, romantic love, and agape, unconditional love. Eastern cultures, particularly those from Persia and Egypt, also played a role in shaping Roman ideas about love. The famous affair between Julius Caesar and Cleopatra brought Roman attention to Egyptian royal customs, where love and political power were deeply intertwined. The influence of Eastern ideas about beauty, sensuality, and passion can be seen in Roman art and literature, where love is often depicted as a divine, almost mystical experience. Religion in ancient Rome was closely linked with every aspect of life, including love and marriage. The Romans worshipped numerous deities, many of whom had domains over love, beauty, and fertility. The goddess Venus, the Roman counterpart to the Greek Aphrodite, was the goddess of love, beauty, and desire. Venus was central to Roman romantics ideals, and her influence was evident in both private and public life. The Veneralia, a festival dedicated to Venus, was held annually, where people prayed for love and romance. During this festival, citizens would offer sacrifices and make wishes for successful marriages or the return of a lost lover. Venus was seen not only as a symbol of romantic love, but also as a deity who could bestow favor upon individuals in their personal relationships. Juno, the Roman goddess of marriage, was another influential figure in Roman romantic practices. She was invoked during weddings, and couples often prayed to her for happiness, fertility, and lasting union. Religious rituals surrounding marriage were intended to secure divine favor for the couple and to ensure the continuity of their family line. In Roman society, public displays of affection were generally frowned upon, especially for married couples. Romans believed that a display of love in public could bring dishonor or shame upon one's family. In contrast to the more open attitudes toward love and sexuality seen in other parts of the world at the time, Roman society tended to keep romance within the private sphere, particularly among the upper classes. However, the relationship between the public and the private in Roman romantic life was not entirely restrictive. Public events, such as banquets and celebrations, often included opportunities for flirting, courtship, and socializing. But these interactions were usually subtle. The theater, gladiatorial games, and public festivals offered settings where romantic gestures could occur, but they were always cloaked in formality and decorum. There was, however, an exception to this: poetry. Roman poets were often not only the writers of romantic verse, but also the public figures who read their works aloud at social gatherings. In this way, poetry became a form of public romance, where the poet could publicly express affection, longing, or desire, often in a highly stylized, theatrical manner. Beauty was highly valued in ancient Rome, both in terms of physical appearance and character. Roman views on beauty were heavily influenced by Greek aesthetics, with an emphasis on symmetry, proportion, and harmony. Ideal beauty was seen as a reflection of a person's moral character, and a beautiful individual was expected to exhibit virtuous qualities such as modesty, strength, and loyalty. The Roman obsession with beauty was not just confined to individuals, but extended to romantic relationships as well. Men were often expected to seek out beautiful women, not just for their looks, but for their ability to produce strong, healthy offspring. Similarly, women were encouraged to maintain their appearance, as beauty was seen as a vital asset in the pursuit of marriage and social status. Roman art and literature reflect the importance of beauty in romance. Sculptures, paintings, and poems frequently depicted love as a pursuit of physical and emotional perfection. celebrating the beauty of both the beloved and the lover. The idealization of beauty in romantic relationships shaped the way love was experienced and expressed in Roman culture. Social class played a crucial role in shaping love and marriage in ancient Rome. While love could transcend class boundaries, marriage was strictly tied to one's social status. The Roman elite, made up of senators and aristocrats, often married within their own class to preserve family wealth and status. For them, love and marriage were often more about securing political alliances and increasing power than about personal affection. For the lower classes, including freedmen and slaves, the rules surrounding love and marriage were much more fluid. Slaves, while not able to marry in the formal sense, could form relationships that were deeply meaningful. These relationships were often seen as unofficial unions, but they held great significance for those involved. Freedmen, once they attained their freedom, were able to marry within their social class, though they could never fully break free from the stigmas associated with their former slave status. Roman law allowed some degree of social mobility, but it was much more difficult for those from lower classes to marry into the elite. Even the most passionate of love affairs could be hindered by social class divisions, as a couple's status often determined whether their relationship could flourish in the long term. In ancient Rome, virginity was highly valued, particularly for women. A woman's virginity was seen as a reflection of her purity and virtue. The loss of virginity, particularly before marriage, could bring great shame to a family, and in some cases could lead to a woman's exile or punishment. The concept of celibacy, while not as pervasive as virginity, also played an important role in Roman society, especially for religious figures. Vestal virgins, a group of priestesses dedicated to the goddess Vesta, were required to remain celibate for 30 years as part of their sacred duties. Their virginity was seen as symbolic of purity and devotion to the gods, and their role in Roman religion was highly respected. Celibacy and virginity were not just societal expectations. They were tied to Roman notions of moral integrity and public honor. The value placed on virginity in women, especially among the aristocracy, was reflective of broader concerns with lineage, inheritance, and the preservation of family reputation. The legacy of Roman love and romance has had a profound influence on modern society. Many of the concepts developed by the Romans regarding marriage, love, and relationships continue to shape our understanding of romance today. The Romans' emphasis on loyalty, fidelity, and family values can still be seen in the modern ideal of marriage as a lifelong commitment. Roman literature, particularly the works of poets like Ovid and Catullus, continue to inspire modern writers and artists. The Roman notion of love as a complex, multifaceted emotion, full of both beauty and pain, resonates with contemporary audiences and remains a central theme in modern poetry, literature, and film. Moreover, the Roman approach to love as both a personal and societal experience laid the groundwork for modern views on relationships, blending individual desire with the broader social context. While love in ancient Rome was often intertwined with duty and political power, it also offered a space for personal connection and emotional expression, much like the relationships we pursue today. The exploration of love and dating in ancient Rome reveals a fascinating blend of emotion, duty, power, and social convention. While the ways in which the Romans approached love and marriage were different from our own, many of the underlying themes, passion, affection, commitment, remain timeless. The Roman fascination with love, beauty, and the complexities of romantic relationships laid the foundation for much of the modern world's approach to these topics. In the end, while the structures of Roman society may have changed, the human experience of love, its trials, its joys, and its inevitable heartbreaks, remains largely the same across time. The stories of love from ancient Rome remind us that while the world may change, the pursuit of love and the emotional bonds we form with others remain a central part of the human experience, transcending centuries and civilizations. The ideas and ideals surrounding love in ancient Rome have had a profound impact on Western literature, philosophy, and art. Roman poets like Ovid, Catullus, and Horace, with their explorations of love in various forms, whether passionate, tragic, or playful, became icons of Western literary tradition. Their works influenced later poets and writers, including Shakespeare, whose plays explore many of the same themes of romantic longing, jealousy, and the complexities of human relationships. Ovid's Ars Amatoria, The Art of Love, for example, was not just a Roman text, but one that became foundational for understanding romantic and courtship strategies in the Western world. It was widely read, translated, and studied throughout history, and its playful tone, combined with practical advice on relationships, echoed in the works of later European poets who wrote about love, desire, and seduction. In the visual arts, the legacy of Roman love stories continues to be seen in countless paintings, sculptures, and architectural designs. The mythological tales of love between gods and mortals, such as Venus and Mars or the tragic story of Pyramus and Thisbe, were common subjects for Renaissance and Baroque artists. These depictions often explored the beauty, the fleeting nature, and the vulnerability of love, with clear nods to Roman artistic traditions. When we look at Roman romantic customs and compare them with modern dating practices, we see both similarities and differences. The basic human emotions that drive romance, attraction, affection, passion, have remained the same. However, the way in which relationships are structured, the freedoms individuals have in pursuing romantic connections, and the expectations placed on them have evolved. In Roman times, courtship was highly formalized and tied to one's social status. For women, marriage was often an economic and political transaction rather than a romantic choice. Modern dating, on the other hand, has evolved into a more individualistic pursuit, with an emphasis on emotional connection and personal choice. Moreover, Roman courtship was heavily influenced by public norms and expectations. The concept of modesty, especially for women, was paramount. The modern dating culture, however, tends to be more fluid, with less societal pressure to adhere to traditional roles. The rise of digital dating platforms has further shifted the way we approach relationships, offering a broader range of possibilities and avenues for romantic connections. One of the most significant changes in modern dating is the notion of falling in love. While Romans viewed love as part of duty or societal role, today's culture tends to prioritize emotional intimacy, mutual respect, and the pursuit of personal happiness as central to romantic relationships. In ancient Rome, marriage was not only a personal affair but also a highly strategic tool for political gain. Just as in modern politics, where relationships and marriages between powerful families or nations can shift the balance of power, Roman marriages often had very practical purposes. The marriages of Roman emperors, generals, and aristocrats were often more about securing alliances than finding love. For instance, the marriage of Augustus and Livia was not just a personal union but a calculated political move, cementing Augustus' power and ensuring his dynasty's future. Augustus's marriage laws, which sought to encourage marriage and childbearing among the Roman elite, were also designed to ensure the stability of the Roman state. Similarly, Julius Caesar's romantic and political alliance with Cleopatra not only altered the course of history, but also set the stage for the eventual fall of the Roman Republic. Love, in this context, was used as a tool of diplomacy, a way to solidify power and influence across the Mediterranean world. One of the key aspects of Roman marriage customs was the practice of arranged marriages. This was largely a matter of social and political necessity. Marriages were often arranged by families to strengthen their social standing or secure important political alliances. While this may seem like an antiquated practice in today's society, the roots of this custom still exist in various parts of the world. In modern-day cultures, particularly in parts of Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, arranged marriages remain a common practice. Although the dynamics have changed, and there is often more choice for the individuals involved, the influence of Roman marriage practices can still be seen. In ancient Rome, marriages were not based on love, but rather on pragmatic concerns, ensuring the continuity of the family name, acquiring wealth, and maintaining social prestige. Similarly, while love plays a larger role in modern arranged marriages, the connection between marriage and family heritage is still significant in many cultures today. In Roman society, sex and romance were often treated as two separate but Intertwined aspects of relationships. While romantic love was idealized in literature and art, the social structure of Rome often treated sex as a physical act divorced from emotional intimacy. Roman men, especially those of higher social rank, could engage in sexual relationships outside of marriage, and these were often seen as expressions of power or control rather than affection. Women, in contrast, were expected to remain chaste until marriage and to be faithful to their husbands. While men could take lovers or concubines, women's sexual conduct was more heavily regulated. The concept of fidelity in marriage was expected of women, even if their husbands were often free to engage in extramarital affairs. Roman society also saw the rise of both male and female prostitutes, who existed outside of traditional romantic frameworks. While these individuals were marginalized, their roles were integral to the larger societal structure, which often viewed sex as a service or commodity rather than an act of affection. Roman mythology played a significant role in shaping the cultural understanding of love and relationships. The gods and goddesses of Rome were often seen as embodying the complexities of love, desire, and relationships. For example, Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, was the patron of romantic passion, while Mars, the god of war, represented the sometimes tumultuous nature of romantic relationships. The myth of Cupid and Psyche is one of the most well-known Roman love stories, exploring themes of love, trust, and betrayal. In this myth, Cupid, the god of love, falls in love with the mortal Psyche, but their relationship is complicated by jealousy and betrayal, leading to a series of trials that Psyche must overcome to be reunited with her love. This myth highlights the complexity of love and the obstacles that often stand in the way of achieving true happiness in relationships. Roman mythology was often used to explain the deeper emotional experiences of love and to illustrate the consequences of both love's joys and heartaches. These myths were not only stories but were also used to guide behavior in matters of love and courtship. In Roman society, the performance of love, both public and private, was of great importance. Love and romance were not just private emotions, but were part of a larger social performance. Love was something to be publicly displayed, albeit in subtle ways, to show status and virtue. The love affairs of emperors and aristocrats were often spectacles for the public, meant to enhance their social standing and demonstrate their power. Roman literature often reflected this public nature of love. Poets like Ovid wrote not only to explore personal romantic experiences, but also to offer advice to the public on matters of love and courtship. These works were widely circulated and read by the Roman elite, shaping the cultural norms and expectations surrounding relationships. This concept of performing love in public was not just about romantic relationships, but also about maintaining one's public image and honor. Marriages, too, were performed in front of the public to cement familial alliances, while public displays of affection were often reserved for formal occasions like festivals or feasts. The study of love and dating in ancient Rome reveals a rich and complex web of cultural practices, social expectations, and personal emotions. Although the Romans did not have dating as we know it today, their approach to love and relationships has left an indelible mark on Western culture. From the influence of Roman literature and mythology on love stories to the enduring legacy of arranged marriages and the public display of romance, the Roman worldview continues to shape our understanding of relationships. As we reflect on the history of Roman romance, we are reminded that love, in its many forms, transcends time and place. The fundamental emotions and experiences of love, whether passionate or tragic, are timeless, and as much as society changes, the human heart remains the same. The Romans may have lived thousands of years ago, but their stories of love, betrayal, and triumph are still as relevant to us today as they were in antiquity. In ancient Rome, friendships were often regarded as vital relationships that complemented romantic love, and in some cases, even replaced it. For both men and women, close friendships formed a crucial part of the social fabric, providing emotional support, counsel, and, in certain cases, romantic undertones. Friendship between men, particularly among the Roman elite, was highly valued. These relationships were often forged in military service, political spheres, and intellectual circles. Some of the greatest literary works of Rome, including those of Cicero and Seneca, reflect a deep philosophical contemplation of the concept of amicitia, friendship. These friendships were celebrated as models of loyalty, trust, and mutual respect, which were also considered essential components of a romantic relationship. In some ways, these idealized friendships foreshadowed the more modern concept of a relationship built on mutual affection, respect, and shared emotional experiences. Roman friendships were seen as providing a foundation for deeper romantic connections, wherein trust and emotional intimacy could blossom. Thus, friendships played an important role in the romantic and personal lives of the Romans, even if they were often regarded as separate from more overtly sexual or romantic love. In ancient Rome, the family was the most essential unit of society, and its structure played a significant role in shaping individuals' romantic and marital lives. The concept of familia, the family unit that included the head of the household, the pater familias, his wife, children, and slaves, was crucial to both social and romantic customs. Love, especially for women, was often expected to be expressed within the confines of marriage and family. The role of women within Roman families was dictated by duty to their husbands and children. While romantic love between husbands and wives may not have been the primary consideration, familial love was central. The obligation to bear children, maintain the household, and uphold family honor was considered essential for Roman women, while men were often expected to demonstrate love through protection, provision, and leadership. The connection between marriage and family in Rome was inseparable, and the Roman ideal of marriage as a public institution meant that the love between a husband and wife was often an extension of their responsibility to ensure the stability of their family and their lineage. Thus, romantic affection, while sometimes present, was often secondary to duty and societal expectations. Social class played a pivotal role in shaping romantic relationships and marriages in ancient Rome. While elite Romans had access to greater freedoms in their romantic lives, they were also subject to more rigid expectations about whom they could marry and for what purposes. Conversely, for the lower classes, including freedmen and slaves, romantic relationships were governed by a more fluid social structure, though still influenced by status. For the elite, marriages were often arranged to secure wealth, power, and political alliances, with romantic love being a secondary consideration. Aristocratic marriages were strategic and formal, often ensuring that both parties maintained their positions within the social hierarchy. Even if affection was involved, it was rarely the motivating factor behind a marriage, and romantic love was seen as an outcome of the partnership, not a starting point. The lower classes, including freedmen, did not have the same stringent expectations regarding marriage. They could marry for love, though their social standing could limit their options. Roman slaves, however, did not have the legal right to marry, though they could form relationships. These were considered unofficial unions and often reflected a deeper emotional bond. The challenges faced by slaves, such as separation, ownership, and lack of legal standing, rendered their romantic relationships fraught with difficulty. Yet these partnerships often proved to be just as meaningful as those in the upper classes. Public festivals were an essential aspect of Roman life, providing a space where people could come together to celebrate, socialize, and, in many cases, form romantic connections. Festivals dedicated to gods and goddesses, such as the Veneralia, dedicated to Venus, the goddess of love, were celebrated with much fanfare, providing a stage for public displays of affection, flirtation, and even courtship. During festivals, especially those celebrating love and fertility, the boundaries between the private and public spheres of romance were temporarily blurred. These events allowed for greater freedom of expression, and many Romans took advantage of the social opportunities to meet potential romantic partners. Young men and women would gather in public spaces, exchanging gifts, engaging in flirtation, and participating in celebratory rituals that could lead to the formation of romantic bonds. While Roman society generally valued decorum in public life, festivals were an exception where more open expressions of affection were acceptable. The role of public festivals in Roman romance cannot be underestimated, as they not only facilitated romantic interactions, but also helped reinforce the cultural importance of love, beauty, and fertility. Jealousy, as an emotional reaction to romantic rivalries, played a significant role in ancient Roman relationships, especially in the highly competitive world of Roman love affairs. Given the societal emphasis on personal reputation, the desire to outdo rivals and maintain one's standing within the social hierarchy often led to jealousy and intrigue. Roman authors, such as Ovid in his Remedii Amoris, The Remedies of Love, acknowledged jealousy as a natural but destructive force in relationships. His writing, often humorous and cynical, explored the emotional tumult of love, including jealousy. In Rome, it wasn't uncommon for lovers to engage in rivalry, whether they were vying for the affections of a powerful man or woman, or competing within the context of marriage. Famous historical figures like Cleopatra and Julius Caesar also experienced the tensions of rivalry, where their public relationships often became arenas for jealousy and political competition. Jealousy in Rome, much like today, was a reflection of the intensity of romantic emotions, and its impact could lead to conflict, scandal, and, in some cases, personal tragedy. In ancient Rome, widowhood was a situation that could present significant challenges for women. Roman society placed a high value on marriage, and a widow's loss of her spouse could lead to a decrease in her social standing. While Roman men could remarry relatively easily after the death of their wives, women faced societal pressures and stigmas that made remarriage more complicated. A widow could inherit her late husband's property, but she was often expected to remain loyal to his memory and refrain from remarriage. However, widowhood was also a time of relative freedom for Roman women, as they were not bound by the strict expectations that governed marriages. Some widows, especially those of higher social status, could maintain significant control over their property and wealth, though the expectation to remarry for social or economic reasons remained strong. Remarriage for a widow was often seen as an opportunity to secure a new alliance and protect her position within society. However, for widows with young children, remarriage could also be an act of ensuring their children's futures, as remarriage could bring financial security and a place within a new family unit. The art of poetry and writing love letters played a significant role in the expression of romantic feelings in ancient Rome. Romans, especially the upper class, used poetry to express admiration, affection, and desire. Poets like Catullus, who wrote intensely personal and passionate poems, and Ovid, whose Ars Amatoria offered advice on love and relationships, became the voice of romantic ideals in Roman society. Love letters, too, were an important form of communication for couples. These letters were not just personal notes, but often carried the weight of social expectations and emotions. For many lovers, letters served as a way to maintain a connection when physically apart, as Roman communication depended on messengers or written correspondence. Much like modern-day love letters, these writings were used to confess affection, express longing, and seek reconciliation. The influence of Roman poetry and the use of written words to express romantic feelings carried forward into future literary traditions, influencing writers from the Middle Ages to modern-day authors. Roman beliefs about the afterlife had an interesting impact on how love was conceptualized and memorialized. In Roman society, there was a deep belief that love did not end with death but continued into the afterlife. This was reflected in the funerary monuments that families commissioned for their loved ones, which often depicted romantic relationships, love, and devotion. One of the most iconic representations of Roman love is the tomb of the famous lovers, Paetus and Arria. Their story, in which the wife Arria took her own life in a show of devotion to her husband, was immortalized on their tomb. These monuments were not merely a way to memorialize the dead. They were a statement of enduring love, transcending even death. The belief that love could continue beyond the physical realm gave comfort to Romans, especially when faced with the loss of a loved one. This notion influenced later Christian ideas of eternal love and life after death, cementing the connection between love, mortality, and the afterlife in Western thought. Throughout the course of this exploration of love and romance in ancient Rome, we've encountered the complexity, nuance, and lasting impact that Roman customs and traditions have had on how we understand love today. While the nature of Roman Relationships was often bound by societal expectations and class distinctions. The emotional depth, passion, and sometimes tragic consequences of these relationships resonate with us across millennia. The Romans may have lived centuries ago, but the stories of their love, heartbreak, and triumphs continue to inspire modern conceptions of romance and relationships. The legacy of Roman love stories, from the mythological tales to the personal poetry, reminds us that love, in all its forms, is a powerful, timeless force that connects us to our past and shapes our future. In the ancient Roman world, love was often intertwined with the ideals of honor, duty, and sacrifice, especially within the context of warfare. Roman soldiers, famed for their discipline and devotion to the empire, were also subject to the emotional pull of love and affection, which sometimes led to extraordinary acts of devotion, heroism, and personal sacrifice. One of the most famous stories from Roman military history involves the legendary Roman general Scipio Africanus. It is said that during his military campaigns in Spain, Scipio fell in love with a local woman. Though he was driven by a sense of duty to Rome, his romantic entanglement created inner conflict. The story of Scipio's love for the woman reflects how love and military duty often collided in the lives of Roman soldiers. In some cases, the love a soldier had for his homeland, his family, or even a romantic partner could drive him to perform heroic feats on the battlefield. The emotional bond between soldiers and their loved ones, whether they were wives, lovers, or mothers, was often considered a source of strength. The desire to protect those they loved was a motivating factor that drove many Roman warriors, creating a sense of honor and duty to return home to their loved ones, even at the risk of their own lives. Fertility was a significant theme in Roman culture, especially in relation to love, relationships, and marriage. The Romans held several festivals throughout the year to celebrate fertility, life, and sexual desire, linking these themes directly to the cycles of nature and the gods. The most notable of these was the Lupercalia, a festival dedicated to the god Lupercus, who was associated with fertility and purification. During the Lupercalia, a group of young men would perform rituals in the hopes of promoting fertility in women and ensuring a successful harvest. One of the most intriguing aspects of the festival was the pairing of young women with men by lottery, in which the couples would engage in symbolic actions meant to strengthen romantic bonds and increase fertility. This event symbolized the intertwining of love, fertility, and the celebration of physical attraction in Roman society. Fertility festivals were also a way to honor the sexual aspect of relationships. Unlike modern-day concerns about privacy and discretion, the Romans were far more open about sexual relationships, celebrating them publicly as vital to the prosperity of the state. These rituals were not only a way to ensure that the population continued to grow, but they were also an acknowledgement of love's connection to creation, both in human relationships and the natural world. The Roman theater, which flourished, particularly during the Republican Empire, was another space where love, romance, and relationships were explored in a very public manner. Theaters in ancient Rome were popular venues for entertainment, with comedies, tragedies, and satirical performances often dealing with themes of love, desire, and the complexities of human relationships. Roman playwrights, including Plautus and Terence, wrote extensively about love in their comedic works. Their plays often focused on the trials and tribulations of lovers, the confusion caused by mistaken identities, and the humorous misunderstandings that could arise in romantic relationships. While these plays were lighthearted, they also provided insight into how Romans viewed love, sex, and marriage, often with a touch of cynicism or playful irony. In contrast, Roman tragedies often depicted the darker side of love, such as jealousy, betrayal, and unrequited passion. The character of Dido in the Aeneid, for instance, is a tragic figure who falls in love with Aeneas, only to have her love rejected, leading to her eventual death. Such stories in Roman theater served as both a source of entertainment and a moral lesson on the complexities of love. The theater in Rome provided a space for exploring the human condition through the lens of love and relationships, and many of the themes addressed by playwrights are still relevant in modern storytelling. Roman Art and architecture were powerful mediums through which the Romans expressed their views on love and relationships. The most iconic representations of love in Roman art often came from the mythological realm, with gods and goddesses depicted in intimate scenes that celebrated the ideals of beauty, passion, and fertility. One famous example is the mosaic art that adorned many Roman villas and public buildings. These mosaics often depicted scenes of lovers, gods, and goddesses in romantic settings, symbolizing the harmonious relationship between the human and divine. The imagery of Venus and Mars, the gods of love and war, was especially common in Roman art, where their relationship symbolized the balance between passion and conflict. Roman architecture also had an indirect connection to love, particularly in the design of villas and private homes. Homes of the wealthy often featured spaces dedicated to intimate gatherings, such as atriums and gardens, where lovers could meet in private or enjoy romantic evenings. These architectural spaces, with their attention to beauty and comfort, reflected the Roman appreciation for the emotional and physical aspects of love. The Romans also had a long tradition of creating funerary monuments for their deceased loved ones. These monuments often depicted romantic or familial scenes, symbolizing the eternal love between spouses or family members. The idea that love transcended death was a common theme in Roman art, reinforcing the notion that love was a powerful force that lasted beyond the physical realm. The intersection of love and politics was one of the most compelling aspects of Roman romantic life. As we've already seen in the relationships of figures like Julius Caesar, Cleopatra, and Augustus, love was often entangled with power, ambition, and political strategy. In ancient Rome, romantic relationships could be both personal and political, serving as means of securing alliances, gaining influence, or consolidating power. The story of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra is a prime example of how love could be used as a political tool. Caesar's affair with Cleopatra was not only a romantic relationship, but also a strategic alliance that brought Egypt under Roman influence. This union symbolized the merging of political and personal desires, with love becoming a means to an end rather than an isolated emotional experience. Similarly, Augustus's marriage to Livia Drusilla was another union that combined both love and political necessity. Augustus used his marriage to Livia as a means to consolidate power and establish a stable succession plan for the Roman Empire. The political aspect of their marriage did not diminish their affection for one another, but it highlighted how love was often secondary to broader political objectives in Roman society. Love in the Roman Empire, particularly at the highest levels of power, was often a means of achieving political goals. Romance and affection were not confined to personal relationships, but were also intertwined with the ambitions and machinations of Roman rulers. In ancient Rome, one's social reputation was often closely linked to their romantic and marital relationships. For both men and women, love and relationships were heavily influenced by the need to maintain a respectable public image. This was especially true for women, who were expected to uphold their family's honor and maintain their chastity until marriage. A woman's reputation could be severely damaged if she was perceived as promiscuous or unfaithful, leading to social ostracism and sometimes legal consequences. For men, romantic relationships often came with the expectation of maintaining a respectable image as a loving husband and father. While Roman men had more freedom to engage in extramarital affairs, their relationships were still subject to public scrutiny, especially if these affairs threatened the stability of their families or political alliances. The concept of virtue, which encompassed qualities like honor, courage, and moral integrity, was central to Roman social life. Love, marriage, and relationships were seen as extensions of one's virtues, and maintaining a positive reputation was essential for social advancement. As such, the personal choices made in matters of love and marriage could have significant repercussions on an individual's social status and political career. Though ancient Roman dating customs might seem distant, they continue to influence modern romantic relationships in subtle and significant ways. The Roman view of love, complex, sometimes transactional, and interwoven with societal expectations, still echoes in contemporary romantic practices. For instance, The idea of marriage as both a personal and public institution is reflected in modern society's emphasis on both emotional and social compatibility in marriage. While love is often the primary motivating factor today, many people still consider social status, financial security, and family reputation when choosing a partner. Moreover, the idea of courtship through social rituals, as seen in Roman societies, public festivals and rituals, can be observed in modern dating practices. From first dates to marriage proposals, contemporary romantic practices often involve public displays of affection or symbolic gestures of love, echoing the Roman approach to romance as a blend of personal emotion and social performance. The role of political and familial considerations in relationships, seen in the marriages of Roman elites, continues to play a part in contemporary society. Arranged marriages, while not as common today, still occur in various cultures, and relationships often involve the negotiation of social or familial expectations alongside personal desires. As we conclude our exploration of love and relationships, in ancient Rome, it's clear that Roman society had a unique and multifaceted approach to romance. Whether through the politics of love, the public rituals of courtship, or the emotional expressions of poetry and art, the Romans understood love as both a private and public affair, a force that could both bind people together and drive them apart. The enduring influence of Roman love can be seen in modern relationships, where the complexities of romance, desire, and social expectations continue to shape how we engage with love today. From the grand historical figures to the everyday lives of Roman citizens, the stories of love in ancient Rome provide us with timeless lessons on the nature of human connection, passion, and commitment. Roman love poetry played a key role in shaping how love was perceived, expressed, and celebrated in ancient society. Poets like Catullus, Ovid, and Tibullus were masters at capturing the complexity of human emotions through verses that spoke of desire, heartache, and the intricacies of romantic relationships. These poets provided a window into the emotional lives of their readers, offering both guidance and reflections on the themes of love. Catullus's poetry, for instance, expressed a wide range of emotions, from tender affection to the sharp pain of betrayal. His passionate expressions of love for his lover Lesbia became iconic, offering a deeply personal perspective on the emotional depth of Roman romance. In his poems, Catullus captured the rawness of love, showing how the joy of being in love could easily turn into suffering and despair. Ovid, perhaps the most famous Roman poet on the subject of love, crafted Ars Amatoria, the art of love, as both a manual and a playful exploration of courtship and seduction. Ovid's witty, light-hearted approach to love contrasted with the more intense and personal poetry of Catullus. His work gave readers practical advice on how to woo, win, and maintain a lover, while also offering a philosophical reflection on the nature of love as a game or strategy. His poetry celebrated love's fluidity and unpredictability. Tibullus, known for his melancholic and wistful poems, brought a different perspective, emphasizing the themes of idealized love and rural bliss. His poems often portrayed a romanticized view of love and relationships, focused on the purity of devotion between lovers and the serenity that love could bring to one's life. These poets not only immortalized the beauty and pain of love in ancient Rome, but also paved the way for future generations to express their own romantic sentiments through poetry. The role of women in Roman society was complex, particularly when it came to matters of love and relationships. While the societal framework placed significant restrictions on women's personal freedom, their emotional experiences and contributions to Roman love were far from passive. In fact, the ways in which women engaged in relationships and influenced the course of love in ancient Rome offer fascinating insights into gender dynamics and social expectations. In the upper echelons of Roman society, women were often expected to marry for political, social, or economic reasons. Yet, despite these pressures, many women found ways to express affection and loyalty within their marriages. The poet Sulpicia, one of the few known female poets from the Augustan period, wrote poems that expressed a woman's desire, love, and passion. Sulpicia's poetry highlights the emotional and intellectual engagement of Roman women with the topic of love, as well as the subtleties of their romantic desires. For freeborn women, their roles in marriage were often framed by expectations of fidelity, modesty, and duty. However, the nuances of love in these unions were often hidden from public view. While romantic love was not always the primary reason for marriage, it was certainly present in many relationships, and women found ways to cultivate emotional connections within these unions. On the other hand, the lives of Roman slaves and freedwomen were marked by very different experiences of love. Slaves, particularly female slaves, had limited autonomy and often had to navigate the complexities of relationships with their masters or fellow slaves. Yet, even within these confines, love could be a source of personal strength and resilience, with many slaves forming deep and meaningful connections despite their lack of social standing. Tragic love stories are as ancient as human history, and the Romans were no strangers to the kinds of passionate, often heart-wrenching relationships that have captivated audiences for centuries. Roman literature is filled with stories of star-crossed lovers, tragic fates, and the consequences of love gone wrong. One of the most iconic stories of tragic love is that of Dido and Aeneas, as depicted in Virgil's Aeneid. Dido, the queen of Carthage, falls deeply in love with Aeneas, the Trojan hero destined to found Rome. Their passionate affair is torn apart by fate, as Aeneas is compelled by divine forces to leave Carthage and fulfill his destiny in Italy. Dido, consumed by grief and despair, ultimately takes her own life, a tragedy that highlights the destructive power of love when it is unrequited or unfulfilled. The tale of Pyramus and Thisbe, which Ovid recounts in Metamorphoses, is another tragic story of love and misunderstanding. In this myth, two lovers, separated by their feuding families, plan to meet secretly. However, a series of unfortunate events leads to their deaths, with Pyramus mistakenly believing that Thisbe has been killed by a lion. The lovers' deaths become a symbol of the tragic consequences of miscommunication and the intensity of forbidden love. These stories, along with countless others, served as cautionary tales, warning of the dangers of obsessive love and the power of fate in shaping human lives. They also resonated deeply with the Roman public, who were familiar with the tension between personal desires and the demands of society and duty. The impact of Roman love stories on modern culture cannot be overstated. Many of the themes explored in ancient Roman literature, such as the interplay between love, fate, and societal constraints, continue to inform modern romantic narratives in literature, film, and art. The tragic love stories of Roman mythology, like that of Dido and Aeneas, have inspired countless adaptations, from Renaissance operas to modern-day films. The idea of love as a force that can drive individuals to extreme acts, whether heroism or self-destruction, remains a central theme in many contemporary stories. In literature, the themes explored by Roman poets like Catullus and Ovid also resonate in modern-day poetry and romance novels. The playful, strategic approach to love in Ovid's Ars Amatoria has inspired generations of writers who continue to explore love's games and complexities, while Catullus's raw emotional honesty can be seen in the works of modern poets who lay bare the joy and sorrow of love. Moreover, the cultural norms surrounding love, marriage, and family life in ancient Rome continue to shape social structures today. While marriage is no longer primarily a tool for political or economic gain in most societies, the Roman focus on family values, social reputation, and the role of love in maintaining the stability of the household still echoes in contemporary relationship ideals. In ancient Rome, religion was intricately tied to love and romantic relationships. The Roman pantheon included gods and goddesses who were directly associated with love, beauty, and sexuality, and many of their festivals were closely tied to the cycles of fertility, marriage, and desire. Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, was central to Roman religious practices. She was honored in various rituals and festivals, including the Veneralia, which was dedicated to her as the protector of love, marriage, and sexual relationships. Venus was not only a symbol of romantic affection, but also of physical attraction and sexual desire, reflecting the Roman belief in the interconnectedness of love and physicality. The goddess Diana, often associated with chastity and hunting, also played a role in the Roman understanding of love, particularly the more spiritual and reserved aspects of romantic relationships. Her devotees were often young women who sought her protection in matters of love and marriage. Roman religion also acknowledged the darker side of love through deities like Cupid, the mischievous god of desire, whose arrows could cause individuals to fall in and out of love in an instant. The belief that love was influenced by divine forces permeated Roman society, where individuals regularly turned to the gods for guidance or intervention in matters of the heart. Roman society placed a strong emphasis on virginity, particularly for women, as it was seen as a symbol of purity, moral integrity, and familial honor. A woman's virginity was closely linked to her worth in the eyes of society, and it was often considered a prerequisite for marriage. Virginity was seen as a valuable asset to be preserved until marriage, and any deviation from this norm could result in public shame and social ostracism. For women, virginity was a marker of social status, and maintaining it was considered vital for securing a good marriage. In contrast, men were not held to the same standards of sexual purity, and their romantic and sexual exploits were often overlooked as long as they did not undermine the family structure. The idea of virginity and the cultural importance placed on it were reflected in Roman marriage ceremonies. The bride would be presented as a virgin, symbolizing the purity and sanctity of the union. Even in cases where the marriage was more about political or economic gain, the concept of virginity remained a crucial aspect of the marriage contract. The stories of love and romance in ancient Rome continue to captivate our imagination because they touch on universal human emotions: passion, desire, heartache, and triumph. Whether through the poetry of Catullus, the tragedies of Ovid, or the strategic unions of Roman elites, the experiences of love in Rome remind us that love is both a personal and a social force, one that shapes our lives and influences the course of history. Roman love was not simply about the pursuit of affection. It was bound by societal expectations, political considerations, and divine forces. Yet, within these constraints, the Romans were able to express the full spectrum of human emotion, creating a rich legacy of romantic literature, art, and philosophy that continues to shape our understanding of love today. As we reflect on the legacy of Roman romance, we see that while the forms and customs may have changed, the core human experience of love, its joys, challenges, and power, remains as relevant and compelling as ever. Love in all its many forms is timeless, and the Romans understood this better than anyone. Roman marriage laws were instrumental in shaping the way love, relationships, and family life were structured in the empire. While marriage was primarily viewed as a social contract and a tool for securing alliances, Roman law also laid out specific rules and regulations that governed romantic relationships, sexual conduct, and family responsibilities. These laws were meant to ensure the stability of Roman society and the continuation of the family line. One of the most important marriage laws in Rome was the Lex Julia de Maritandis Ordinibus, introduced by Augustus in 18 BCE. This law sought to encourage marriage among the Roman elite and to penalize those who remained unmarried or childless. Augustus believed that marriage and childbearing were crucial to the stability of the Roman Empire, and these laws were designed to promote the moral values of Roman society. The Lex Julia imposed penalties on those who were found guilty of adultery, an act that was considered a serious violation of both social and moral codes. Roman men, who were often allowed to take lovers or concubines, could face legal consequences if their actions led to the breakdown of their marriage or disrupted their family. Women, however, were expected to remain sexually faithful to their husbands, and any infidelity was often met with harsh punishment. The legal framework of Roman marriage, with its focus on public morality, societal duty, and family lineage, reflected the broader cultural view of love as something that could be influenced by external forces like law, politics, and religion. The military played a central role in Roman society, and its influence extended to all aspects of Roman life, including love and romance. Roman soldiers, who were often away from their families for extended periods of time during military campaigns, had complex relationships with love and romance. The experience of separation, longing, and emotional attachment was a key part of the military culture, and this was reflected in the ways soldiers expressed their love for their wives, lovers, and families. Roman soldiers, particularly those who were stationed far from Rome, would often write letters to their wives and lovers back home, expressing their longing and desire for reunion. These letters were sometimes filled with passionate declarations of love and promises to return. The physical distance between lovers created a romantic idealization of relationships, where soldiers saw their romantic partners as symbols of stability and emotional connection amid the chaos of war. Interestingly, Roman military culture also contributed to the idea of virility, the physical and emotional traits associated with masculinity. Roman soldiers were expected to display not only physical strength, but also emotional fortitude. Their relationships, especially those with women, often reflected traditional views of masculinity, where men were expected to be dominant, protective, and responsible. Yet there was also a subversive aspect to this military romanticism. Soldiers sometimes fell in love with the local women in the territories they occupied, forming relationships with women from conquered peoples. These relationships were often seen as taboo or illicit, yet they added complexity to the way love was viewed in Roman military life. Beauty, both physical and moral, was highly valued in Roman society, and the concept of beauty played an important role in the way love and relationships were understood. The Romans placed great importance on outward appearances, seeing physical beauty as an outward reflection of inner virtue and moral character. Roman ideals of beauty were deeply influenced by Greek notions of symmetry, proportion, and harmony. Roman statues, portraits, and works of art often depicted idealized versions of the human body, with an emphasis on balance and aesthetics. The emphasis on beauty was not limited to women. Roman men, too, were expected to maintain a certain level of physical fitness and attractiveness. In terms of romance, beauty was seen as an essential quality in choosing a lover or spouse. Many Roman love poems, particularly those by poets like Ovid and Catullus, express a fascination with the beauty of the beloved, often focusing on the physical features that were considered most desirable: clear skin, bright eyes, and well-formed bodies. Yet beauty was not only about appearance. Moral character and virtue were also considered essential elements of attractiveness. In marriage, the concept of beauty also extended to the moral beauty of a woman's character. A virtuous woman, one who upheld her social duties, was faithful to her husband and embodied Roman values of modesty and domesticity, was seen as beautiful in a moral sense. The combination of physical beauty and virtuous character was idealized in the Roman conception of love. Roman views on sexuality were complex and multifaceted. The Romans were relatively open about sexual activity compared to other ancient civilizations, but there were still strict social norms governing sexual behavior. Roman sexuality was intertwined with ideas about power, status, and control, particularly in the context of relationships between men and women. For Roman men, sexuality was often tied to dominance. Men were expected to take an active, dominant role in sexual relationships, while women were expected to be passive. The notion of a virtuous woman in Rome was often linked to her sexual purity, her ability to remain chaste until marriage, and faithful to her husband thereafter. However, Roman men had far more sexual freedom and were allowed to engage in relationships with prostitutes, slaves, and even other men, as long as these activities did not threaten the integrity of the family unit. Male homosexuality in Rome, while not illegal, was regulated by social conventions. Roman men who took the dominant role in homosexual relationships were often not stigmatized, but those who took the submissive role were considered to have violated social norms of masculinity. These complex views of sexuality shaped Roman attitudes toward love, where sexual pleasure was often viewed as something distinct from emotional affection. For women, however, the rules surrounding sexuality were much stricter. A woman's sexual conduct could have profound consequences for her reputation and social standing. Adultery, in particular, was considered a serious offense, and women who were caught in extramarital relationships could face harsh punishments, including divorce, exile, or even death. In ancient Rome, the family was the cornerstone of society, and love played an important role in maintaining family bonds and ensuring the continuity of the Roman state. The Roman family was structured around the paterfamilias, the male head of the household, who had legal authority over all family members, including his wife, children, and slaves. The paterfamilias was responsible for making decisions about marriage, family property, and the education of children. Love within the Roman family was often understood as a combination of duty, affection, and respect. Parents were expected to provide for their children's emotional and physical well-being, while children were expected to honor and obey their parents. While romantic love between spouses was often not the primary motivation for marriage, emotional affection could grow over time. Many Roman men and women developed deep affection for their partners as they navigated the shared responsibilities of family life. The family's survival and success were seen as more important than individual romantic desires and love within. The family was largely framed around the concept of loyalty and duty. However, this did not mean that emotional bonds were absent. Parents, especially fathers, expressed their affection for their children, and children often demonstrated their love for their parents through respect and care. Roman love, with all its complexities, is a fascinating subject that reflects the multifaceted nature of human relationships. From the strict societal expectations that governed marriage and sexuality, to the passionate poems of love and longing that still resonate today, Roman society understood love as both a deeply personal experience and a social institution. The influence of Roman love stories, marriage customs, and the role of family continues to be felt today, with many of their values and ideals echoing in modern relationships. While the Romans may have lived in a different time, their approach to love, sex, and relationships reveals much about the human condition that remains relevant in the present. The themes of passion, duty, honor, and societal expectations that permeated Roman romantic life remind us that love, in all its forms, is an enduring force, one that shapes individuals, families, and entire societies. Whether through the poetic musings of a Roman poet or the strategic marriages of emperors, Roman love is a testament to the timeless nature of human connection and the complexities of romantic relationships. In Roman mythology, love was often portrayed as a force of both creation and destruction. The gods and goddesses of Roman mythology were frequently depicted as embodying various aspects of love, beauty, and passion. Their stories, often filled with dramatic twists, illustrate the power of love to influence the fate of mortals and immortals alike. One of the most well-known love stories in Roman mythology is that of Venus, Aphrodite in Greek mythology, and Mars, Ares in Greek mythology. Venus, the goddess of love, and Mars, the god of war, were often depicted as lovers, symbolizing the intersection of beauty and passion with strength and power. Their affair, despite being a symbol of romantic love, was also a reminder of the volatile and sometimes destructive nature of relationships. Another iconic myth is that of the tragic lovers, Pyramus and Thisbe, whose love transcended family conflict but ultimately ended in tragic death. This story became one of the archetypal tragic love stories, influencing later works like Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. The Romans, through their mythology, explored the themes of love and fate, and these myths continue to resonate today as universal symbols of love's complexities. The Roman gods, with their human-like flaws and powerful emotions, serve as reminders of the ways love, in all its forms, shapes not only individual lives, but also the larger course of history. In these stories, love is both a gift and a curse, capable of bringing both joy and suffering. Weddings in ancient Rome were not only the union of two individuals, but also a significant social event. The ceremony itself was rich in symbolism and rituals that reflected the importance of marriage in Roman society. While love between the bride and groom may not have been the primary focus, the ceremony and subsequent life together were crucial to maintaining family honor and continuity. The Roman wedding was a highly formal event that typically took place at the bride's home. The ceremony began with a ritual known as the deductio, where the bride was formally given away by her father. This symbolized her transition from her family's household to that of her new husband. The bride wore a flame-colored veil, or flammeum, and a wreath made of flowers, signifying her virginity and her status as a bride. One of the most important rituals in the Roman wedding was the dextrarum junctio, the joining of hands, which was a symbol of the couple's new life together. This act represented the formal union of the couple, signifying their emotional, legal, and social bond. During the ceremony, vows were exchanged, and the couple was married in front of witnesses, reinforcing the communal aspect of Roman marriages. The wedding feast that followed the ceremony was a public display of the union, with much emphasis placed on the couple's status and the continuation of family lines. While romantic love was not always the central focus of the Roman wedding, these ceremonies reinforced the importance of family, duty, and societal roles within the context of love. The love stories and romantic ideals of ancient Rome had a profound influence on Renaissance art and literature. During the Renaissance, there was a renewed interest in classical Greek and Roman culture, including its rich literary traditions. The works of Roman poets like Ovid, Virgil, and Catullus were rediscovered and celebrated, influencing the Renaissance understanding of love, beauty, and relationships. One of the key figures in Renaissance literature who drew inspiration from Roman love poetry was Petrarch. His poetry, particularly his canzoniere, was deeply influenced by the works of Roman poets, especially those of Ovid and Catullus. Petrarch's exploration of unrequited love, idealized beauty, and the inner turmoil of romantic desire mirrored the emotional complexity found in Roman love poetry. In art, Renaissance painters like Raphael and Titian often depicted scenes from Roman mythology, especially those involving Venus and Mars. These mythological depictions highlighted the timeless nature of love, portraying it as a divine transcendent force. Venus, as the goddess of love, was frequently painted as a symbol of beauty, fertility, and romantic affection. Roman love stories also found their way into Renaissance theater, influencing playwrights like Shakespeare. The themes of tragic love, fate, and the tension between passion and duty from Roman mythology were present in many of Shakespeare's works, such as Romeo and Juliet. These works drew heavily from the Roman tradition of tragic love, where love leads to both bliss and suffering. The Renaissance revival of Roman ideas about love and romance shaped the cultural foundations of modern Western art and literature, reinforcing the timeless nature of love as a central theme in human experience. Sacrifice in the context of love was a recurring theme in Roman mythology and literature. The concept of the lover's sacrifice, where one partner is willing to suffer for the sake of the other, was seen as a noble and virtuous expression of devotion. This theme was often explored in Roman love stories, reflecting both the personal and social costs of love. One of the most iconic examples of lovers' sacrifice in Roman literature is the story of Pyramus and Thisbe, whose tragic deaths are an expression of ultimate devotion. Their love was thwarted by external forces, and their willingness to die for one another speaks to the strength and purity of their emotions. The tragic end of their story serves as a cautionary tale about the risks involved in intense, forbidden love. Similarly, the story of Dido and Aeneas in Virgil's Aeneid exemplifies the idea of sacrifice for love. Dido, devastated by Aeneas' departure, ultimately sacrifices her life rather than live without him. Her act of self-destruction highlights the intense emotional and psychological toll that love can exact when it is lost or unrequited. In Roman culture, this theme of sacrifice was often idealized in literature and myth. It represented the extremes of devotion and the price that individuals were willing to pay for love. The idea of amor vincit omnia, love conquers all, was both a romantic ideal and a sobering reminder of love's potential to lead to self-destruction. Love magic was a practice that had a significant place in Roman society, particularly among women, who were often considered to be more vulnerable to emotional influence. Romans believed in the power of magic to affect love, attraction, and desire. And there were various rituals, charms, and spells designed to make someone fall in love or to rekindle passion in a relationship. Love magic in ancient Rome was usually practiced through the use of spells and potions, often accompanied by prayers to specific deities such as Venus, the goddess of love. These rituals were believed to have the power to influence the emotions of the person the spell was aimed at, causing them to become enamored or even obsessed with the person performing the magic. In addition to personal spells, there were also public festivals dedicated to the practice of love magic. One of the most famous of these festivals was the Lupercalia, where sacrifices were made to ensure fertility and love. During the festival, young men and women were paired by lottery, and the connection between them, however temporary, was believed to bring about love or at least physical attraction. The practice of love magic, though largely viewed with skepticism by the more elite members of Roman society, reflects the deep desire to control and influence the unpredictable nature of love. It also highlights the extent to which romantic emotions were intertwined with belief in supernatural forces and the desire to control human behavior through ritualistic means. Roman celebrations and feasts played a central role in the expression of love and romance. Many of these events provided opportunities for socializing, flirting, and forming romantic connections. Roman feasts, often held in honor of gods, military victories, or political achievements, were lavish affairs that brought together people from all levels of society. The most famous Roman festival for love and fertility was Lupercalia, held in mid-February. During this festival, young men and women would engage in playful rituals, including drawing names from a jar to pair up for the duration of the festivities. The pairing was seen as a way to encourage both physical attraction and fertility. This festival was particularly important for young Romans, as it offered an opportunity to find a romantic partner or, at the very least, to engage in flirtatious behavior. The Saturnalia, another popular festival, was marked by revelry, gift-giving, and a loosening of societal norms. During this time, slaves were allowed to partake in the feasts and festivities alongside their masters, and the usual social hierarchy was temporarily overturned. This break from tradition provided an opportunity for people to explore different romantic or sexual relationships outside of the rigid social structure. Feasts and public celebrations were, therefore, an important part of the Roman social fabric, offering spaces for people to meet, flirt, and potentially form romantic attachments. These gatherings blurred the lines between public and private, allowing love to be celebrated in a communal setting. The legacy of Roman love and romance endures through history and continues to influence modern conceptions of love, marriage, and relationships. From the poignant poetry of Ovid and Catullus to the dramatic tales of mythological lovers, Roman culture left an indelible mark on the way we understand the emotional and societal dynamics of romantic relationships. Roman love stories, with their themes of passion, sacrifice, and fate, continue to shape modern literature, art, and film. The concept of love as both a personal experience and a social institution, one that is intertwined with power, politics, and family, remains relevant today. Roman ideas about the roles of men and women in relationships, the importance of family honor, and the public display of affection still resonate in contemporary romantic norms. As we reflect on the enduring nature of Roman love, we recognize that while society may change, the emotions at the heart of human relationships remain the same. Love, in all its forms, continues to captivate and inspire, making the stories of ancient Rome as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. The Roman concept of marriage has had a profound and lasting impact on Western culture, shaping the modern understanding of marriage as both a legal contract and a personal bond. While marriage in ancient Rome was often seen as a duty to the family and state, it also carried with it emotional and personal significance, particularly as the Roman Empire expanded and evolved. In Roman society, marriage was primarily viewed through the lens of societal duty. The paterfamilias, or head of the household, had legal authority over marriage decisions, and marriages were often arranged to secure alliances, ensure social stability, and protect family wealth. This form of marriage emphasized the union between families rather than the union between individuals. However, love, while not the central motivation for many Roman marriages, still played a role, particularly as the empire's influence spread and Roman law adapted. The legal framework of Roman marriage with its focus on public vows, dowries, and the role of the paterfamilias, laid the groundwork for how marriage would be treated in later legal systems, particularly in the Christian tradition. The Romans' establishment of marriage as both a public and private institution allowed for the gradual transition toward a more emotionally driven and personal concept of marriage, one that would dominate much of Western thinking in the centuries to follow. Today, many aspects of Roman marriage laws continue to influence the structure and rituals of Western weddings, such as the exchange of vows, the role of families in the ceremony, and even the concept of dowries in some cultures. The Romans' emphasis on legal responsibility in marriage, alongside emotional and romantic bonds, helped shape the way society views commitment, family, and romantic partnerships. Roman military heroes were often idealized not only for their bravery and accomplishments on the battlefield, but also for their relationships with love and romantic loyalty. The concept of amor, love, in the context of Roman military life was more complex than a mere expression of affection. Love could signify loyalty to one's family, comrades, and country, but it could also signify devotion to romantic partners, and sometimes even the battlefield itself. For example, the famous general and statesman Julius Caesar is not only remembered for his political acumen and military genius, but also for his complicated romantic entanglements, including his affair with Cleopatra. His relationship with the Egyptian queen, though politically motivated, also showed his capacity for deep personal affection. Caesar's ability to balance military duty and romantic relationships showcased the dual aspects of his character, both a public figure and a passionate lover. Another example of the intersection between Roman military prowess and love can be seen in the legendary tale of Hannibal's love for his country. While Hannibal of Carthage was an enemy of Rome, his passion for his country and people reflects the Roman understanding of love as something that transcends personal affection and becomes entwined with one's duty and sense of identity. The image of the Roman military hero, both disciplined and capable of romantic devotion, helped to perpetuate the ideal of the vir, man, in Roman society, a person who could successfully balance love, loyalty, and duty. This ideal continues to influence modern depictions of soldiers and military figures, who are often shown as capable of both fierce bravery and deep emotional connections. In ancient Rome, love and marriage were not merely personal experiences, but also tools for advancing political and social power. Roman elites understood the importance of romantic relationships in securing alliances, consolidating power, and achieving personal and familial ambitions. Love, in this sense, was often used strategically to ensure the growth and stability of one's social position. Political marriages were among the most important tools for securing power in Roman society. Marriages were frequently arranged between high-ranking individuals to forge alliances between powerful families or between Roman politicians and foreign leaders. The unions of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra, as well as Augustus and Livia, were prime examples of how love and marriage were harnessed for political gain. Beyond marriage, personal romantic relationships were also used to gain influence. Powerful men, such as generals and emperors, often formed intimate relationships with women from influential families. These relationships were not just expressions of affection, but also served as means of expanding political networks and solidifying power. Even among the Roman plebeians, romantic relationships and marriages had social implications. The family unit, as a fundamental pillar of Roman society, had to maintain its reputation. Individuals of higher status often arranged marriages not only to benefit personally, but also to improve their family's social standing. Festivals were a central part of Roman life, with love and romance being key themes during many of the celebrations. These festivals provided a space where societal norms could be relaxed, allowing for flirtation, courtship, and, in some cases, the initiation of romantic relationships. They also represented moments when love could be celebrated in the public sphere, away from the formalities of daily life. One of the most well-known Roman festivals related to love was the Lupercalia, held in mid-February. It was dedicated to the god Lupercus, associated with fertility and protection, and celebrated the connection between love, sexuality, and nature. During the festival, young men and women participated in a lottery that paired them up for the Duration of the festivities. This temporary pairing often led to flirtations, romantic connections, and in some cases, lasting relationships. The Veneralia, dedicated to Venus, was another festival celebrating love and beauty. During this festival, both men and women would pray to Venus for success in love and relationships. It was a time for expressing affection openly, with gifts, songs, and dances celebrating romantic bonds. Roman festivals like these created a temporary space where the formal structures of Roman society were loosened, allowing for public expressions of love and affection. The traditions of these festivals have influenced modern-day celebrations such as Valentine's Day, which similarly celebrates love and romance. In Roman society, the idea of virtue, was central to all aspects of life, including love. Virtues encompassed a wide range of moral and ethical qualities, such as courage, loyalty, honor, and integrity. These qualities were not only valued in soldiers or political leaders, but also in romantic relationships, where loyalty, honesty, and respect were essential traits for lovers and spouses. For the Roman elite, love was not just about passion, but also about the display of virtue within a relationship. A Roman man or woman was expected to embody the virtues of Roman society in their romantic relationships. These virtues extended beyond the individual and impacted the family and state. A marriage, for example, was expected to reflect moral standards that would benefit the family and contribute to society. A famous example of Roman virtue in love is the relationship between Pygmalion and Galatea, as told by Ovid. Pygmalion, a Ayeti sculptor, fell in love with his own creation, a statue of a woman which eventually came to life. The love between Pygmalion and Galatea represents an idealized, virtuous love that transcends the physical and reflects an enduring emotional connection. The Roman connection between love and virtue shaped the cultural understanding of what it meant to be a good lover, spouse, and citizen. This blend of emotional devotion and social responsibility was a hallmark of Roman romantic ideals. Loyalty was a key pillar of Roman marriage, and it was considered an essential part of the bond between husband and wife. While romantic love was not always the focus of marriage, the expectation of loyalty was paramount. The strength of this loyalty was often symbolized in Roman marital vows and rituals, which emphasized the public commitment between the two partners. Roman marriage was a public institution with legal consequences. The commitment to one's spouse was not only emotional but also social and legal. Adultery, especially on the part of the wife, was a serious offense that could result in public disgrace, loss of property, and even exile. In contrast, Roman men had more freedom in their romantic and sexual affairs, though their actions could still affect their marriage and reputation if they undermined the stability of the family. Roman loyalty in marriage extended beyond the romantic connection, including loyalty to the family, to the broader social group, and to the state. The wife's duty was to her husband and children, while the husband's responsibility was to protect and provide for his family. Both partners were expected to show mutual respect and commitment to the family's honor. As we've seen, Roman love was both an intimate and public affair, filled with complexities, rituals, and moral obligations. The Romans, with their rich cultural and legal framework, shaped the way love was understood and practiced, creating lasting traditions that have influenced modern ideas of love, marriage, and relationships. The Romans may have lived in a world where love was often constrained by societal expectations, political motivations, and legal obligations. But their expressions of love, through poetry, mythology, art, and personal relationships, remind us that love is a powerful and enduring force. It transcends time and place, and its complexities continue to shape our world today. By reflecting on Roman love, we gain not only a deeper understanding of an ancient society, but also valuable insights into the universal emotions that define human relationships. Roman love, in all its forms, serves as a timeless reminder that love is not just a fleeting emotion, but a force that shapes individuals, families, and societies across history. The influence of Roman love, with its complexities and rich traditions, continues to resonate in the way we understand and express romantic relationships today. Despite the significant cultural, social, and technological changes that have taken place since the time of ancient Rome, many of the fundamental concepts of love, marriage, and courtship established by the Romans still shape contemporary norms and practices. Modern romance still carries echoes of the Roman ideals of virtues, loyalty, and honor, which were emphasized in Roman relationships. These virtues, while not always explicitly stated, continue to guide the ways we view commitment, fidelity, and partnership in modern relationships. Roman love stories, from the passionate poetry of Catullus to the tragic tales of Dido and Aeneas, provide timeless insights into the emotional and psychological landscape of human relationships. Today, we still navigate the delicate balance between personal desire and social responsibility, as the Romans did, in the context of family, status, and public image. The concept of love as both a private emotion and a public institution persists, reflected in the way relationships are viewed by society and the expectations placed upon individuals in those relationships. The Roman family was the fundamental social unit, and love within the family was crucial for ensuring the stability of both individual lives and the state. Although the family structure in modern society may have changed, the values of loyalty, respect, and duty in familial relationships still echo the Roman ideals. Roman marriage and family life were primarily built on the foundation of duty and continuity. Parents were expected to uphold the family's reputation, and children were expected to respect their parents and fulfill their duties. Today, while romantic love plays a larger role in marriage, the sense of duty to family remains a central value. Marriage continues to be viewed as a partnership not just between two individuals but also between two families, with shared responsibilities. For in Roman society, family members were united by blood and loyalty, but they also functioned as a support system that ensured the social structure remained intact. Modern relationships continue to reflect this sense of loyalty and mutual support. Family members still play an important role in the love lives of individuals, with parents often involved in guiding their children's romantic choices and helping them navigate the complexities of love. Roman law, particularly concerning marriage, has had a profound influence on modern legal systems, especially in Western countries. Roman marriage laws, which governed everything from the legal status of wives to property rights and dowries, laid the groundwork for modern legal concepts surrounding marriage and relationships. One of the most significant legal concepts that originated in Roman law was the idea of marriage as a legally binding contract. This notion persists today in many modern legal systems, where marriage is not only a personal union but also a formal, legal commitment that carries with it specific rights, responsibilities, and obligations. The concept of divorce, although it has evolved over time, can also be traced back to Roman legal practices, where both men and women had the right to dissolve a marriage, albeit under specific circumstances. Roman ideas about inheritance and property ownership also continue to shape the way modern societies view family law. The emphasis on the family as the central institution in Roman law continues to influence contemporary legal practices, where marriage and familial relationships are often treated with special legal recognition and protection. Roman love, particularly the ideals and stories that emerged from Roman mythology, art, and literature, continues to inspire modern art and popular culture. Roman depictions of love, whether it's the passionate bond between Venus and Mars or the tragic sacrifices of Dido and Aeneas, have had a lasting impact on how love is portrayed in films, books, and music. In visual art, the mythological themes of love, beauty, and desire remain central motifs. Artists throughout history have drawn on Roman mythology for inspiration, creating masterpieces that explore the complexities of human emotion through the lens of divine romance. Venus, often depicted as the ideal of beauty and love, remains one of the most iconic figures in Western art, representing the timeless appeal of love's allure and power. In modern popular culture, themes from Roman love stories continue to resurface. The tragic romance of Romeo and Juliet is rooted in the ancient Roman tradition of star-crossed lovers, while Hollywood films often incorporate elements of Roman mythology to explore contemporary relationships. The ideal of love as both an uplifting and tragic force continues to captivate modern audiences, reminding us of the universal emotions that connect us to the past. The intersection of love and politics, so evident in Roman society, continues to influence modern political and social dynamics. In ancient Rome, love was often harnessed as a political tool, whether through arranged marriages to secure alliances or the romantic liaisons of powerful leaders to consolidate power. Today, while the dynamics may have changed, the use of personal relationships for political gain still exists in various forms. In modern politics, relationships and marriages between powerful individuals are often viewed as strategic alliances, similar to their Roman counterparts. Celebrity marriages, political unions, and diplomatic relationships all serve as modern versions of the Roman use of love for power and influence. However, today, these relationships are more likely to be driven by personal choice and emotional connection, rather than societal duty and political necessity. The political dimension of love can also be seen in how public figures romantic. Relationships are often scrutinized by the media, influencing their image and political careers. The public's fascination with the romantic lives of political leaders mirrors the Roman tendency to view love and marriage through a public lens, where the personal became deeply intertwined with the political. The relationship between love and power in ancient Rome offers a fascinating lens through which to understand the evolution of modern society. The Romans viewed love and relationships as essential to both personal well-being and the functioning of society. While love in ancient Rome was often intertwined with power, whether in marriages, military loyalty, or political alliances, today's society has made strides toward separating romantic relationships from the political and social forces that once governed them. In modern times, the autonomy of love has become more pronounced, with individual choice and personal happiness often taking precedence over social or political considerations. However, the foundational elements of Roman love, honor, loyalty, and public image continue to affect modern relationships, especially in terms of marriage, family, and the intersection of personal and public life. By looking at Roman love, we see how power dynamics within relationships, both romantic and familial, can shape the broader cultural context. As society continues to evolve, the lessons from Roman love offer insight into the ways we negotiate affection, power, and societal expectations in the complex landscape of modern relationships. As we reflect on the many facets of Roman love, its trials, triumphs, and tragedies, it becomes clear that the experiences and emotions at the heart of Roman romance are not confined to ancient history. Roman love, in all its forms, continues to inspire and influence how we think about love today. From the passionate poetry of Roman authors to the political alliances forged through marriage, the stories of Roman romance continue to resonate with modern audiences. The legacy of Roman love is not just found in the stories they told, but in the ways we experience love today. The ancient Romans understood that love is a force that shapes individuals, families, and even empires. Whether through the idealized beauty of Venus, the loyalty expressed through marriage, or the tragic sacrifices made in the name of love, the Romans left a rich legacy that continues to shape our romantic ideals. Roman love is timeless. It teaches us that love is both a personal emotion and a societal force. It is capable of inspiring great acts of devotion and at times leading to the most tragic consequences. Above all, Roman love reminds us that love in all its forms is a powerful, enduring part of the human experience.